Hello, everybody. I'm a practicing therapist and a doctoral student of psychology. Today, we're going to talk about why avoidants are controlling with money. This was requested. So, avoidants are controlling with money. We're going to talk about all of the details, but I do want to mention a lot of this comes originally from childhood, and a lot of people take this very personally and get offended about this. And I do get this, and the reality of it is it has nothing to do with you. Avoidants are controlling about money when you're not there. You just don't see it. They're controlling about how they manage their finances as well, their budget as well. Some avoidants are so specific, they never like turn the lights on. They live in like basically darkness because they're trying to save money. Like genuinely, I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I know avoidance like that. Or like it's very cold outside and they keep their house at like 63 or 59. And I understand like that can be okay to some people. Like people can't afford every situation. So I'm truly not judging that. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that even if they can and they are absolutely comfortable financially, they still are very controlling with money to the point where it's actually harming them, hurting them. They might even like avoid taking health insurance so they can bring home as much as they can and save as much as they can. And they avoid doctors because they're afraid of the copay or whatever it may be. And they're very specific about certain things, very uncomfortable. And so they're not like this with just you, but it does affect your relationship. So we're going to talk about that today. What is the first reason? And we'll talk about many, many reasons. The first one is that they're afraid to be used. Okay. A lot of avoidants grow up believing their value is what they can provide, what they can give, but also what they're perceived like. So it doesn't even have to be from a gender dynamic, even though this one is more common with male avoidance, by the way. It is more common with male avoidance. But a lot of them believe that the only thing that they are good for is their achievement. And so this actually creates anxiety about whether someone genuinely likes them or whether it's mainly just because you want their money or what they can provide or who they are. And this is something that a lot of them are afraid of. So actually, they hold on to their money very tightly. But what I notice is once they commit to someone, they're actually very comfortable spending a lot on their partner, as long as they realize that this person is trustworthy. But more common with male avoidance. It does happen with female avoidance, but it's more common with male. The next one is past experiences. If an avoidant has been taken advantage of, financially manipulated, gone through a divorce. And this is really common if they've gone through a divorce. Again, this one's more common with male avoidance. Supported a family member heavy. I actually see that one a little more common with female avoidance. Particularly female avoidants who are from certain cultures where their parents heavily rely on them. Like, okay, I don't know much about like cultures can be really difficult. Even like my parents they are immigrants, but they don't have like much culture, if I'm being completely honest, because I came here when they were like, my mom came here when she was like 16. So we probably don't have as much culture, so I can't speak to that. However, I know some people, like their parents are actually not in the country they're in. So like, let's say you are American and their parents are in Mexico, for example. I'm just picking an example. And what I see with some female avoidants more particularly is they believe they have to give money to their parents to help them have a better life in Mexico or Africa or wherever it is. And so I see this sometimes. Again, I'm speaking from a place of I don't understand. People might think I do just because you would think that my parents are in that situation, but that's not true. My parents were pretty, like, we were well off. I don't ever have to help them. But female avoidance, sometimes I feel like they have to help their parents. And so what happens is they really believe that their money is never theirs, and they have this fear of having to do that again, supporting someone heavily, being financially manipulated, going through a divorce, and they're really, really scared of this. And so they might become very guarded about their money because of that experience. The next one is a need for control and security. Okay, so this one is probably the most common one. By far, I would say. Money represents safety and independence. This is avoidance, right? Are we shocked about this? And they're afraid of losing that independence and safety. Money gives them control and stability. Money gives them the ability to live in their house. Money gives them the ability to be safe. They feel very safe. I'm going to give myself an example because I used to be avoidant. I don't know if I should even share this, but I guess I will. I hope it doesn't backfire. When I was in college, my undergrad, I'm for my doctorate now, but I'm talking about when I was an undergrad, I saved a lot of money. And I was able to, when I graduated, I was able to buy, because I worked while being in my undergrad. And I was able to, when I graduated, my goal was I wanted to buy a house. And I don't like loans or debts because my parents never used loans or debts. They bought everything in cash. So I was like, okay, I want to do that too. And so I found a property that I was able to pay, in full. And the reason I did that is because like mortgages and loans and things like that, they make me feel like out of control because I don't own it. And so that was like my main thing. I wanted to buy a house that I could afford and own, and that I don't have any fear if I can't make payments someday, and things like that. So I was really like controlling about what I could do so I could get into that position, and it helped me to feel safe. And so that worked out. That's how I bought my house. But it's because it helped me I didn't know that was not too normal. And again, it could have been my upbringing. I was raised that way as well. But a lot of avoidance, it represents like safety, to have that control, because I was very controlling about those types of things because I was afraid. I wanted to make sure I felt safe. And so that might be an example. If any of you guys have a partner who you kind of can relate to that situation, or you feel like maybe that's what they're trying to do something, or they're goal oriented, or they're just afraid to lose control, that might help. The next one is the different definitions of responsibility. Okay, so this is a childhood thing. This is also pretty common, among other things. This one probably might be the one that they usually have, this one and another one. They genuinely believe that being careful with money is like responsibility or independence. Like their parents taught them that. Like I know that is something I was raised thinking about. Like you might see it as controlling, the other one might see it as disciplined, right? Avoidants are taught a lot that like money is power, money is independence. This is proof that you are, you're in control of yourself. It means you're disciplined, things like that. And so they have those narratives in their mind. So they believe that being really, really careful about money proves that they are independent, that they are disciplined, rather than overly emotional or overly dysregulated. That's their perceived perception. And the next one is a scarcity mindset. Now, this is particularly avoidants who grew up in financial instability. They may be very cautious afterwards, because even if they are afraid of being even if they are financially secure, because they have early emotional experiences. This one is really common with fearful avoidants, actually. I have a lot of fearful avoidant patients that have had, like, they grew up in, like, the foster care system, for example, and they really, like, they literally went from homeless shelters, some of them. And so they know what it feels like to not have money and to be in that scarcity. And they never want to feel like that again. It's an extreme trauma response, And the next one is pressure around emotional control. A lot of avoidants believe that being financially foolish means that you're weak. And so they might be very defensive or hypervigilant around money decisions. And they might feel very uncomfortable being pressured to fork out money or give money, because they feel like that'll prove that they are emotional, like they're easy to manipulate, they're a fool, things of that sort. And the last one is the one that might be more specific to dismissive avoidance. I'm not sure. I notice it a little bit more with dismissive avoidance, and it could be because of some fearful avoidants don't know their parents, or they weren't close to them, because this one is more specific to being specifically taught. They are taught to believe that money is one of the only things that, like, they can control. And I'm going to give a example of myself. My dad literally taught me this, like, very directly. He would always tell me ever since I was younger that money will never leave you and your assets will never leave you. And that's not true at all. But he's like, no matter what, even when you pass away, your assets are your legacy. This is proof that you were a hard worker since the day you were born. Like, this is stuff he still tells me all the time. And my dad is, like, asset obsessed. He has so many assets. And that's just the way he is. But I think that in his mind, this is proof that he is disciplined, that he's controlled, that he was strong his whole life, because that's what avoidance. So sometimes it's like they don't even want to use the money. They just want to hold on to it to show that this is truly the discipline that they have, and that they can give this. My dad's always thinking, like, then I can, have my, legacy, my kids can have my business, things like that. He's always thinking in that way. And he taught me that, like, money is the only thing that really proves that you are disciplined. This is like it's a system that someone can clearly see. It's, people who aren't controlled or emotionally controlled can't do that. And he's wrong about that to some extent. Like, it's not necessarily true all the time, but that's his perception. When I was younger, he always told me stuff like that. So I hope this makes a little bit of sense about money. There's a lot of trauma and things about money that I could definitely go over with, in more detail. But I hope this video is helpful to somebody. Please like, subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.